All right, this is kind of a continuation of yesterday. It's not a separate day because this is still 3-4, but this is kind of part 2 because we didn't get too far in our homework. So yesterday and in yesterday's video, we did 7 and 8. We did a couple of other ones, but I'm going to go ahead and do some of these with you in this video so that for those at home, they can watch both videos and get all their homework done too. Yes.
Are we just doing 12 and 13 or are we doing the back side?
No, we're not doing the back side. We're just going to do the front side. And I made sure I went through today and I actually worked your homework. So this is what your work paper should look like today. But I actually went through and worked your homework and made sure that, and I took 2 of them off because they were the ones that were from the back side and we're just not doing this. So I shortened it up a little bit to make it a little bit easier to do. Okay, so just as a reminder, I'm not going to work this, but as a reminder for number 7, because it's just like number 1 on your homework, when you're given 2 points, you have to find your own slope. And then you pick one of those points and your slope, plug it into y equals mx plus b. Remember, if you know 3, you can always solve for the 4th one. So if you know an x and a y and a m, you can find your own b. Once you have an m and a b, you can write an equation, okay? Number 8, they gave you the b, and they gave you the b because they gave you the y-intercept, and that is the b. And then you had a point and a b, and again, with an x, a y, and a b, you could plug in and find the m. As long as you have 3 of the 4, you can always find the missing link. All right, we're going to do number 9 and 10 because you do have ones like this on your homework. They're very similar, and I'm going to kind of point out a difference real quick, and then when we go to do them, it'll kind of make more sense. When I did this homework yesterday to have a key, I made a mistake on number 10, and I just knee-jerk reaction. I saw 56 and 8, and I put 56 on top. So what I want to caution you is when you're setting up a fraction and you're looking for your slope, don't just knee-jerk reaction, put the bigger number on top, because that's what I did yesterday when I was working these first myself. And then I realized and caught my error halfway through. But I want to caution you not to just knee-jerk reaction when you're building your slope. Always put the bigger number on top, because it's not the bigger number on top. And the way that you decide which one goes on top, okay, think about, it's always y's on top, right? For slope, it's your change in y over your change in x. Your y is what goes, like when you're looking at a graph, your y-axis is what rises as your x-axis moves. So always look for the word per. And if you can remember that whatever it is per, whatever, that per is always your x. And that will really help you, okay? And I'll kind of show you how in this number 9, okay? It says a car moving at a constant speed passes a timing device at t equals 0. Now, I'll keep reading and then I'll come back to it. After 8 seconds, the car has traveled 840 feet. What linear function in the form of y equals mx plus b represents the distance in feet, d, the car traveled any number of seconds, t, after passing the timing device? I know that's a lot, but don't overthink this. What's it asking you to do? It's asking you to write a linear function. You guys know how to do that. When you see what's the linear function, immediately, what do you know you need? An m and a b. The b is the beginning of the story. What do they tell us at the beginning of the story? What is happening? What's the beginning here? It tells you in that first sentence. No, that's the second sentence. Look at that first sentence. The car is moving at a constant speed. Nope. 0. It tells you at t equals 0. It tells you that it sprouts out from that origin. Okay, so it gives you the b in that first sentence by telling you that it's this right here is what gave it away at t equals 0. That tells me that we start at the origin. Okay. After 8 seconds, the car has traveled 840 feet. So we need an m, and we know our m is movement. What's changing here? The amount of feet we travel per what? Per second. So because it's the distance traveled per time, anytime it's a distance in time, it's always distance over time, always, okay? I'm not going to say that time is 100% always your x, but when it's distance in time, it is. Because think about how you say a speed limit. It's miles per hour. If you can remember that, your hour is your per, your time is your per is always on the bottom. Think of going to the grocery store and buying a bundle of bananas and it's 24 cents per pound. That per is always your bottom number, okay? So after 8 seconds, the car has traveled 840 feet. And what that means when you're writing this as a fraction is that it's 840 feet per 8 seconds. Okay, 840 feet per 8 seconds. Now, do we leave it like this? Nope, punch it in your calculator. Somebody tell me what's 840 divided by 8? 105. So my M here is 105. With an M and a B, can we write an equation? We sure can. We can say Y equals 105x. Now, plus B, I'm not going to put plus 0. We know it's there, but we don't ever write it. Now, in this problem, we're actually not quite ready to circle our answer, or in the Math Excel idea of it, you're not ready to put it in the computer yet. How come? The very last sentence tells you that they want you to say distance in feet, which we know that's our 840, right? That's our Y, but they want you to use a D for that. And then they tell you that the car has traveled any number of seconds, and they tell you to use T for that. And we know that our T is our X, right? And the way I explained it earlier today, it's kind of like saying boy, girl, and Emmett Aubrey. Boy, girl is generic, right? The X and the Y is kind of the generic. You can say you're a boy, you're a girl. But if I say Emmett Aubrey, you know which boy and girl I'm talking about, right? If I say X, Y, that's generic for every graph. Every graph has a Y-axis and an X-axis. That's generic. Sometimes they leave it generic, X, Y. Sometimes they name the X-axis T for time, and they name the Y-axis D for distance. And it doesn't change that it's the X and the Y. It just changes that it's being very specific about this particular graph. So in this particular graph, they want you to use D for distance. And we know that the distance is our Y. So in place of the Y, I'm going to put a D. Okay. And then my slope is what I found my slope to be. And they want you to use T for time. So instead of using the generic X, I'm going to actually use a T. They mean the same thing, but in this particular case, this is considered the correct answer. Okay, generic versus specific. If they don't tell you a specific name for the X and Y axis, then it's nice. You can just leave it generic. Okay, all right. Now let's look at number 10. It says at time equals 0, water begins to drip out of a pipe into an empty bucket. Okay, at T0, the bucket is empty. After 56 minutes, 8 inches of water are in the bucket. What linear function, so that's what they're asking us to do here, right? What linear function in the form of y equals mx plus b represents the amount of water in inches? And again, they give us some specifics here. They want us to name it. Inches W in the bucket after T minutes. So for right now, I'm going to ignore that last sentence, and I'm going to ignore the specifics, and I'm going to stay generic because that's what I'm used to. So what do I know I need? An M and a B. What do I know my B is? Because they tell me at time 0, I have an empty bucket. 0, good. I need my M. My M is some change here. What's changing? Well, after 56 minutes, I get 8 inches of water in the bucket. When I did this key the first time, I just put 56 over 8 because I'm so used to the big number being on top. It's not always the case. You've got to think about what's changing per what. My inches goes up per minute, right? So that per is my X. So that tells me in this case that after 56 minutes, that is my X. Okay, that's my X. 8 inches of water is in the bucket. That's what's increasing per minute. So that means that the inches in the water is my Y. So when I'm writing my slope, you always put Y's on top. So in this case, what would my slope fraction look like? 8 over 56. Okay, because it's inches are increasing per minute. All right, that's why the minutes goes on bottom. So don't do what I did and just automatically put the bigger number on top, because that's not going to give you the right answer every time. Now I reduce this to 1/7. So I've got a slope. Okay, with that, I can start with my generic equation. Y equals 1/7 x. Now it's plus 0, but I'm not going to put plus 0. But again, this particular problem wants me to name these and not just be generic. So it wants me to do water in inches, use W. Well, between my X and my Y, which one of those represents my water in inches? My X or my Y? My Y. So that means, to be a little bit more specific, I'm going to say W equals. Okay. I already found my slope, so I'm going to leave that alone. And then it says to use time in minutes. So I'm not going to leave it a generic X for time. I'm actually going to name it T. Okay, means the same thing. One's just generic, one is named. All right, we did this one together already, right? We found our M and our B. I'm not going to actually work it. I'm just going to remind you. We found our M and our B from the graph, which honestly is a lot easier because you don't even have to worry about doing any math. You just name your B, and then you pick another good point, and then you have to find your rise over your run. And do not say that you're just rising one block and running one block. How much do you rise between 7 and 10? How much do you run this way? Okay, be specific. All right. Again, once you find your M and your B, start generic, but then they ask you to get specific. They tell you to use C for cost, and they tell you to use T for hours. Okay. All right. Not going to do that one because we've already done it, correct? Okay. So now I'm going to jump to number 12. And number 12 says an online clothing company sells custom sweatshirts. The company charges $6.50 for each sweatshirt and a flat fee of $3.99. Write a linear function. All right, there's our first step. Write a linear function. As soon as you see that, you should write that you need an M and a B. So I'm going to come out to the side here, and I know I need an M. Not sure why it jumped, but it did. All right. I know I need an M, and I know I need a B. It tells me that the company charges $6.50 for each sweatshirt. Could I say that the company charges $6.50 per sweatshirt? Does that make sense? Okay, for each per sweatshirt means the same thing. And a flat fee of $3.99 for shipping. Remember, when you're deciding on your M and your B, and you're giving it to it like this, if you see a flat fee, a shipping fee, a delivery fee, a deposit, all of those are wording for what you're going to spend no matter how many you buy, right? That's your initial amount spent, whether you buy one sweatshirt or 100 sweatshirts. Your flat fee is $3.99 for shipping. So what does that make that? My M or my B? My B. Because that doesn't change. That is my flat rate I'm going to pay right out the gate, whether I buy one sweatshirt or 100. That's my B. My M is how much I'm going to pay per sweatshirt, because that's what changes. If I buy one sweatshirt, it's $6.50. If I buy two, it's $13. If I buy three, it's $19.50. That's what changes. So that's my M, right? And if you want to think of it as, $6.50 per one sweatshirt, but of course we know we never write it over one. We just put $6.50. Okay. So now can I answer part A? I can write an equation. Y equals, and they tell me to use Y and X, so that's nice. I don't even have to worry about getting specific here. Y equals $6.50 X plus $3.99. Okay. We're actually going to skip part B because it's not in your homework and I don't want to waste the time on it right now. We'll come back to it if we can after break. But I want to ask you is this. What if I ask you now that we have our equation, what if I ask you, what are you going to spend for 5 sweatshirts? I want everybody to try to figure that out. Based on the equation we just wrote, Y equals $6.50 X plus $3.99. How much are you going to spend for 5 sweatshirts? Everybody be working. Hang on, I want to give everybody a shot to do it. Think of where you would plug that 5 in. You going to plug it in for the Y or your total cost, or are you going to plug it in for the X, which stands for the number of sweatshirts you buy? You going to plug it in for the Y or the X? Somebody tell me that. Yeah, plug it in for the X because it's the number of sweatshirts you're buying. Total cost is $6.50 times 5, because that's how many sweatshirts you're buying, plus your flat shipping rate that you're going to pay no matter what. So what do we get as a total? Isaiah? Okay, for those of you that raised your hand, do you agree? Is it $36.49? Yeah, in your calculator, take $6.50 times 5 and then add that shipping fee. And you're going to get that your total amount, or your Y, which is your total amount spent, is $36.49. Okay. All right. I want to do one. Actually, I kind of lied to you, but not really. We are going to flip over to the back and do one only because it's easier than number 13. So I'm actually going to skip 13 and I want to do, where's it at? Yeah, I want to do this one with you because there's one just like this in your homework. Okay. So in lieu of number 13, we're going to do number 16 because I took the one like 13 off your homework, but there is one like number 16 on your homework. All right. It tells us that an international food festival charges for admission and for each sample of food. An admission and 3 samples costs $5.79, and an admission and 6 samples cost $8.75. Well, it doesn't really look like it, but they actually give you 2 points here. They tell you that 3 samples costs $5.75. And we know that the cost is always the Y and the number of samples is the X. So I can write that as an ordered pair. Then it tells me that 6 samples costs $8.75. And I can write that as an ordered pair. With 2 ordered pairs, can I find a slope? I can, because it's what's your slope? Remember, it's your change in Y over your change in X. So my change in Y here is $8.75 minus $5.75, which is what? What's my change in Y? If you need to write it out, you can. Yeah. Okay, it equals 3. And my change in X is on the bottom. Well, that's 6 minus 3, and that's 3. So my M here equals what? My M equals 1. 3 over 3 reduces to 1. Okay, so right off the bat, of these, which one can I cross out is not going to be my, actually 2. Can I cross out is not going to be my equation? Braden? Yeah, they don't have the right slope. I just found my M to be 1, and these have an M of 3. So right off the bat, I can cross those out. But I got to decide between these 2, which means I need a B. Well, I'm not given a B, but with a point and an M, can I find my B? I can. Doesn't matter which point you use. I will choose this top one, okay, as my X and my Y. So I'm going to take the equation, Y equals MX plus B, and I'm going to plug in what I'm given. I have a Y right here. So in place of Y, I'm going to put 575. I have an M. I found that myself. There's my M. Times my X. Well, there's my X right here, right? My X that I'm using in this ordered pair is 3. And then I can find my plus B here because I have everything else. So 1 times 3 is just 3. So I'm going to minus 3 and minus 3 from both sides. The 3 and then minus 3 cancel out, leaving me that my B equals what? 275. I didn't really line that up real good, and don't do what I did. That was really bad. When I put minus 3, I need to be smarter. I need to put minus 3 because it's 3.00. So line it up so you don't make my error. So you get that B equals 275. Well, now can I pick my equation? There it is. That's the one with the right M and the right B. I sure can. So when you're given a scenario, and one scenario is 3 samples at this price, and the next scenario is 6 samples at this price, it's kind of hidden, but it's actually 2 ordered pairs. Okay? And I think it helps to actually write them as ordered pairs. All right, when you go to do your homework, I'm just showing you now. Okay, this is why work is required for this one. This is me working your homework assignment this morning. You're gonna write 3-4 Math Excel. You're gonna put your name, you're gonna number 1. It's just like number 7 on your homework. You're gonna find your own slope, find your own B, write your equation, okay? Every one of them, you're gonna need an M and a B. Okay, whether you have to find your own M, find your own B, or they give you one, they give you the other, whatever. Each one's like a puzzle. You gotta figure out what they give you. Find out what you know, use it to plug in to find what you don't know. All right, so get out a piece of paper, start with writing 3-4 Math Excel. You know, you can always use mine if you don't have any. Put it stacked up here. Put your name, show your work. Please, please, please turn in your work when you're done so that you can get credit. If you get a 10 out of 10, but you turn in no work, what is your grade? 0. 3-4. 3-4 Math Excel and your name. That's what needs to be on your paper. You'll notice that your homework mirrors your paper workbook almost identical. So you have an example of everything you need. Number 7 is like number 1. Or number 1 is like number 7. You get it? Hurry up, Aubrey, you're blocking the paper. Poor Riley's just standing there waiting. Oh yes, I'm gonna come around and I'm gonna check your homework. Let me grab my paper grade book. This should be an easy 10 points because you should have done it with me. 11. You gotta finish it before you get your work. Can't just zone out. Once you get it done, show it to me so you don't get a 0.